I understand what it is to be an owner, then all of a sudden you're not. I understand when you think you're going to be the governor of a team or the alternate governor and you're neither. I understand when you think you're going to be running basketball operations and Samson had to tell you you're not and you're not, but you want to stay around. So you send a tweet every once in a while, which Mark Cuban did in response to the PTFO. The episode that I believe from his tweet he didn't watch. Because what PTFO did is they released a 4-minute clip. And then all of a sudden, Mark Cuban stepped up and said, I'm on Team Ballmer. That's a hell of a statement right off the jump. As much as I wish they circumvented the salary cap, first, Steve isn't that dumb. If he did try to feed Kawhi Leonard money, knowing what was at stake for him personally and his team, do you think he would let the company go bankrupt? Knowing all the creditors would be visible to the world. Let me stop there, Coca. That's just the first paragraph of what Mark Cuban did, and then got into some sort of Twitter beef with Pablo while we're recording a show live. And I'm reading this tweet and I'm thinking, Mark Cuban's a smart guy. I'm not sure I understand if he understands what he's saying. Because let me help. Are you saying that Steve isn't that dumb to circumvent the salary cap when we know Steve already circumvented the salary cap? So was he way dumber 10 years ago? I would say that 10 years did not make him more dumb. I would say that he's one of the best investors as cataloged on the episode in the last 20, 25 years. So let's not talk about him being dumb. But 10 years ago, circumvented. But now, Mark Cuban says, do you think he would let the company go bankrupt? Let me make sure I get this straight. Is Mark Cuban saying that when the company goes to its investors, any company goes to you, Mark Cuban, you're an investor, and the company's losing money. The company may be full of scammers. And they come to you and they say, hey, we need another cash infusion, Marky Mark. Any chance you'll do it? Do you say yes every time? Do you know how rich people get rich? They don't throw good money after bad. Now, I'm giving you the benefit of the doubt, Steve. I'm saying that you invested, and believe me, I don't believe this, but you invested in aspiration as a real way to make the world a better place, one tree at a time. And then you realized, this doesn't seem like a good idea. I can't seem to figure out the financials. They never even told me that they were signing Kawhi Leonard to a $28 million deal. What kind of idiots would sign Kawhi Leonard to a $28 million deal? I can't invest more money in this company. Now, if that's his story that he's sticking to, then how is it that Mark Cuban would think that he'd want to put money in to save them from bankruptcy? And on a side note, the amount of money that would be required, rich people don't stay rich by making stupid decisions and doubling down on those stupid decisions. But are you saying that he would just put that money in to cover it up? It was already past the point. They had already stopped. It is very clear to me that aspiration had stopped paying the bills to the Red Sox, stopped paying the bills to the Clippers, stopped paying the bills to the Forum owned by Ballmer, stopped paying the bills to Kawhi Leonard. Are you telling me that Steve Ballmer should have just invested more money to pay all the bills or just invest enough money to pay Kawhi Leonard? Interesting. And the fact that Mark Cuban would have this point of view when for a living, well, not for a living, but certainly for ego, he did a show called Shark Tank where he was making investments left, right, center. Did all of those work? Did some of the companies come back and say, I could use a little more cash now that the cameras start rolling? And Mark said, no, thank you. Appreciate that. I'll take my losses and move on. Do you know how many times I've seen that in my career where people just say, Ganoog, I'm not taking any more losses. I'm fine. Which would argue if Steve Ballmer said, let them rot, that he knew that somehow Uncle Dennis would be on a list of creditors. It's funny how people think from time to time, though. I don't think that Steve Ballmer had that in his head. I think that Steve Ballmer has to find a way to get Kawhi Leonard that $28 million. And I think that it's going to be very interesting to see how, in fact, he does it. And when a list of creditors comes out, the aspiration guys, a Chapter 11 list of creditors, folks, is released and comes out from the company. Hey, just so we're aware, these are people we owe money to. This is the list. Is it possible? Absolutely. That when the company was going down, that Steve Ballmer and Uncle Dennis and Aspiration got together and said, what do we want to do here? Or was it just Aspiration and Uncle Dennis and Kawhi who got together and said, what should we do here? And they left Steve Ballmer completely out of it, which would be strange because Steve Ballmer is an investor in the company. And before you worry about the unsecured creditors, because every one of those creditors is unsecured, that means they're last online to get money. Secured creditors are first online. You do an endorsement deal, unsecured. Side note, player contracts, unsecured creditors, which is why the union doesn't want teams to go bankrupt. Because in theory, if a team goes bankrupt, then they could say, hey, we are releasing all contractual obligations, and specifically those of players who have guaranteed contracts who stink. Which is why it doesn't happen. Leagues do not let, and it's happened in my career where the Orioles, Eli Jacobs, that team was sold in bankruptcy. Frank McCourt had a problem, but it wasn't bankruptcy. Tom Hicks had a problem that was bankruptcy, but it actually ends up that the teams aren't bankrupt. It's the person, and therefore the contracts get paid. I hope you stayed with me on that. The purpose of that side note was just to tell you player guaranteed contracts are covered when they are professional athletes. But in the real world, when you're an unsecured creditor, you have a problem when you're an unsecured creditor of a company that goes bankrupt because you're on line with a lot of people and the odds of you getting money or all of the money that's owed to you, very small. As a matter of fact, I hope that you're having a synapse alert right now. Do you recall that there are Major League Baseball teams and hockey teams and basketball teams who did local TV deals with a company called Sinclair, Bally's, Regional Sports Networks? Do you recall that on bankruptcy, all those contracts disappeared? And when they were redone at a lower number? Is this sounding familiar? Yet for Kawhi Leonard, hey, 28's 28, $7 million a year, pay me my money. Mark Cuban kept going. He kept going in his tweet. He said it's sad that Pablo Torre didn't take the time to find out how these scammers pulled off their scam. The idea that the default is Ballmer is the bad guy is going to backfire on him. Well, I don't quite see it that way, Mark. And the reason I don't see it that way is that if you watch the show, the entire first part of the show is about the scammers scamming. And the point of the circumvention of the salary cap comes from, wait for it, an employee of the company. And you think that Pablo Torre, an investigative journalist with his reputation on the line, is going with a source that he hasn't properly vetted? Multiple sources? Watch the episode. You see a source on tape, modulated voice, who says the words, circumvent the salary cap. This wasn't Pablo making a conclusory statement or me on the show. This is what was said by the employee. What we said on the show is, wow, that's interesting. The employee says circumvent the salary cap, and the contract says $7 million a year for 4 years, not to do squat. A no-show job. Interesting. Wait a minute, we have another document Pablo discovered that shows the investment that Steve Ballmer made into the company, and then all of a sudden there's a deal that is so out of market that, it makes you think with Kawhi Leonard, one of Steve Ballmer's players.